The whispers started the moment Harold Jensen walked into the auction barn. That's Harold, poor old Harold. Heard he farms with equipment from the 60s. Drives that truck that's held together with rust and duct tape. Wonder what he's doing here. Can't afford anything being sold today. It was Saturday morning, November 4th, 1989. The massive Keller Farm Equipment liquidation auction in Waterloo, Iowa. Biggest farm auction in state history. 32 John Deere tractors, all running, all well-maintained, being sold as complete lot or individually. Every serious farmer in 5 counties showed up. Dealers came from 3 states. Banks sent representatives. This was the sale of the decade. And there stood Harold Jensen, 67 years old, wearing overalls that had been patched so many times you couldn't find original fabric. Boots with soles separating from uppers. Flannel shirt worn thin at elbows. Cap so faded you couldn't read what it once advertised. Harold farmed 320 acres outside Nashua. Small operation. Ran equipment so old most people assumed it belonged in a museum. His newest tractor was a 1968 John Deere 4020. His oldest was a 1952 Farmall M. Everyone knew Harold. Nice guy. Quiet. Kept to himself, but clearly struggling financially. That's what everyone thought anyway. Harold probably came to watch, someone whispered. Can't bid on anything here. These tractors will go for serious money. The auctioneer, Stan Morrison, best in Iowa, started promptly at 9 a.m. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Keller liquidation. We're selling 32 John Deere tractors today. First, I'm offering the entire lot as one purchase, 32 tractors. You take all 32 or none. Opening bid, $2.4 million. The crowd murmured. $2.4 million was steep, but fair. The tractors ranged from 4040s to 8060s. Newest was from 87. Oldest from 73. Average price would be $75,000 per tractor. Do I hear 2.4 million? Silence. 2.2 million? Silence. 2 million even. Someone start us at 2 million. Still nothing. Buying all 32 was too much for most farmers. Too much inventory. Too much cash required. Stan tried again. 1.8 million for the lot. Anyone? A hand went up in back. Chicago dealer. 1.6 million. 1.6, thank you. Do I hear 1.7? Another hand. Minneapolis dealer. 1.7. 1.7. Do I hear 1.8? Silence. The bidding stalled. Stan made a decision. All right, folks, clearly the lot price is too high. We'll sell individually. More opportunity for everyone. The crowd relaxed. Individual sales meant more farmers could participate. First tractor, 1987 John Deere 4050, 300 hours, mint condition, open at $90,000. Hands went up immediately. Serious bidding. The 4050 sold for $112,000 to a farmer from Charles City. Second tractor. 1985 8060, sold for $142,000. Third tractor, 1984 7040, sold for $98,000. The auction was moving fast, tractors selling for good prices, dealers and farmers competing aggressively. Harold stood in back, watching, not bidding, not moving, just watching with those quiet eyes that missed nothing. By noon, Stan had sold 18 tractors. Total sales, 1.9 million. 14 tractors remained. Stan called lunch break. Back at 1 p.m. for final 14 tractors. The crowd dispersed to food trucks outside. Harold walked to his truck, sat inside, ate a sandwich he'd brought from home, drank coffee from a thermos. Alone. 2 farmers walked past Harold's truck, laughed. Look at that rust bucket. Surprised it made it here. Harold probably couldn't afford a hot dog, much less a tractor. Harold heard them, didn't react, just finished his sandwich. 1 p.m. Auction resumed. Stan started on tractor 19. 1982 4040. Opening bid 70,000. Multiple hands. 70, 75, 80, 85, 90. Sold for 90,000. Tractor 20, 1980 4040. Same story. Sold for 84,000. Tractors 21 through 28 sold rapidly. Average price 78,000. By 3 p.m., only 4 tractors remained. The oldest ones, least desirable. Tractor 29, 1976 4030. Opening bid 40,000. Sparse bidding. Sold for 52,000. Tractor 30, 1974 4030. Sold for 48,000. Tractor 31, 1973 4020. Opening bid 35,000, only 2 bidders, sold for 42,000. Final tractor number 32, 1973 4020, same model as number 31. Opening bid 35,000. One hand went up. Local farmer bid 35. 35? Thank you. Do I hear 40? Silence. 38? Anyone give me 38? Nothing. Stan was ready to close. Going once at 35,000. Going twice. A hand went up in back. Harold Jensen's hand. Stan paused, looked at Harold. Sir, you're bidding. Yes, 40,000. The crowd turned, stared. Harold Jensen was bidding. On a $42,000 tractor. The original bidder counted. 42. Harold, 45. Murmurs through the crowd, people whispering. Harold Jensen competing for a tractor. Original bidder, 48. Harold, 50. The other bidder dropped out, too rich. Stan looked at Harold. Sold for 50,000 to the gentleman in back. Sir, your name? Harold Jensen. Stan wrote it down. Congratulations, Mr. Jensen. See the clerk for payment. The crowd buzzed. Harold Jensen just bought a tractor for $50,000. Where'd he get 50,000? Stan wrapped up. That concludes our auction. Total sales, 3.1 million. Thank you all for coming. People started leaving. Harold walked to the payment table. The clerk, young woman named Sarah, pulled up his bid. Mr. Jensen, you won lot 32 for 50,000. How will you be paying? Cash. Sarah blinked. Cash, as in currency? I have a check. That acceptable? Oh, yes, check is fine. I thought you meant literal cash. Harold pulled out a checkbook, wrote a check for 50,000, handed it to Sarah. She looked at the check, looked at Harold, processed the payment. You're all set, Mr. Jensen. Tractor's yours. Harold nodded, started to leave. Sarah called after him. Mr. Jensen, just curious. Why'd you buy number 32? It's the oldest one here. You could have bid on the newer tractors. Harold smiled. Didn't want the newer ones. Just needed one good 73 4020. He walked out. People watched him go. Confused. Harold Jensen just spent $50,000. Guy they thought was broke. Barely getting by. Just dropped 50 grand like it was nothing. What they didn't know, what nobody knew, was about to shock them even more. Monday morning, November 6th. Harold walked back into the auction office. Sarah looked up. Mr. Jensen, can I help you? I want to buy more tractors. We sold them all Saturday. Auction's over. I know, but some sold to dealers, right? They're reselling them. I want to buy from the dealers. Which tractors? Harold pulled out a list, written in pencil on notebook paper. Numbers 1 through 31, every tractor except the one he'd bought Saturday. All of them. I want all 31 tractors that sold to dealers. Sarah stared. You want all of them? Yes. What would it cost? I don't... Mr. Jensen, those dealers paid about $2.8 million for the 31 tractors. They're marking them up 20% minimum. You're looking at $3.4 million minimum, plus the 50 you paid Saturday. Total around $3.5 million. Can you contact the dealers, see if they'll sell to me? Sarah was stunned. Sir, are you serious? You're talking about $3.5 million. I'm serious. Can you contact them? I can try, but Mr. Jensen, do you actually have $3.5 million? Harold reached into his overall pocket, pulled out a bank statement. First Federal Bank of Waterloo, account balance $11,240,000. Sarah's hands trembled, taking the statement. This is your account? Yes. I can pay cash for all 31 tractors, plus the one I bought Saturday. Total 32 tractors. I want them all. Why? Because I need them. For what? You can't possibly need 32 tractors. Harold smiled. Not for me, for others. Can you contact the dealers? Sarah made calls. By Tuesday afternoon, she'd reached all 7 dealers who'd bought tractors, explained the situation. Every single dealer agreed to sell. Average markup was 18%. Total price for all 31 tractors, $3,280,000. Wednesday morning, Harold returned, brought his banker. They sat with Sarah and the dealer's representatives. Harold's banker presented a cashier's check, $3,280,000, made out to the dealers collectively with distribution instructions. The dealers stared. This was real. Harold Jensen, guy they thought was broke, just paid $3.2 million cash for 31 tractors. Combined with the tractor he'd bought Saturday, Harold now owned all 32 tractors from the Keller auction. Total paid $3,330,000. Sarah had to ask, Mr. Jensen, what are you going to do with 32 tractors? Give them away. Give them away to who? Young farmers, people starting out, people who need equipment but can't afford it, people like I was 45 years ago. The room went silent. Harold continued. 45 years ago I was 22, just back from Korea, had nothing, wanted to farm but had no money for equipment. Old farmer named Albert Peterson gave me a tractor. 1948 Farmall H said, pay me when you can. I farmed with that tractor for 6 years, saved money, eventually paid Albert back. That gift changed my life. Now I want to do the same for others. So you're giving away $3.3 million in tractors? I'm giving away opportunity. Same opportunity Albert gave me. These 32 tractors will go to 32 young farmers who need a start. They'll pay me when they can. Or not. Doesn't matter. I have more money than I'll ever spend. Rather use it to help people than let it sit in the bank. Word spread fast. By Thursday, everyone in Black Hawk County knew. Harold Jensen, the farmer they thought was poor, just bought 32 tractors for $3.3 million cash and was giving them away to young farmers. The newspaper ran a story Friday. Local farmer buys $3.3 million in equipment to help young farmers. The story explained Harold's background, how he'd started farming in '44 with nothing, how he'd saved aggressively for 45 years, how he'd accumulated over $11 million farming 320 acres. People couldn't believe it. Harold Jensen, millionaire, the guy with the rusty truck and patched overalls. The story detailed Harold's method. He'd farmed 320 his entire life, never expanded. Bought used equipment, fixed everything himself, lived on about $8,000 annually, saved everything else. Over 45 years, farming income totaled about $3 million after expenses. But Harold had invested wisely. Municipal bonds, dividend stocks. His investments grew to $8 million. Add land value of $1.2 million. Add equipment and cash. Total $11.2 million. Nobody knew. Harold looked broke. Acted broke, but was worth $11 million. Now he was using that wealth to help young farmers. Applications poured in. Over 200 farmers applied for the free tractors within 3 days. Harold read every application. Selected 32 young farmers personally. His criteria, farming full-time or wanting to. Under 40 years old. Genuine need. Good character. He chose farmers from 6 counties, invited them to his farm, showed them the 32 tractors, let each pick one. The youngest recipient was 19, the oldest 38. All were struggling, all needed equipment, all were shocked to receive a tractor worth $50,000 to $110,000 free. Harold's only requirement: help another farmer someday when you can. Pass it forward. One recipient, 24-year-old named Michael Torres, cried when Harold gave him a 1985 8060 worth $140,000. I've been saving for 5 years, had 18,000. Wasn't close to buying something like this. This changes everything, thank you. Harold smiled. You remind me of myself at 24. Work hard, save your money, help others. You'll do fine. By Christmas '89, all 32 tractors were distributed. Harold had given away $3.3 million in equipment, didn't want recognition, didn't want publicity, just wanted to help. But the story got bigger. Farm Journal covered it. Agricultural magazines nationwide picked it up. Harold became famous despite not wanting fame. Reporters asked, "Why live so frugally when you're worth 11 million?" Harold's answer: "Because I don't need more than I have. My house is comfortable, my truck runs, my clothes work. Why would I waste money on things I don't need, when I could use it to help people who actually need help?" What's your proudest achievement? Helping 32 farmers get started. If even half of them succeed, that's 16 farming families who'll make it because of these tractors. That's more valuable than any amount of money. The impact was immediate. Of the 32 farmers who received tractors, 28 were still farming successfully 10 years later. That's 87% success rate, far higher than the typical 52%. Those 28 farmers collectively farmed over 18,000 acres by 1999. Employed over 60 people, generated millions in economic activity, and they all remembered Harold. When asked why they succeeded, they said the same thing. Harold Jensen gave me a start. I won't waste it. Several recipients eventually paid Harold back, despite no requirement to do so. Michael Torres paid him back in full, $140,000 over 8 years. Harold tried to refuse. Michael insisted. "You gave me a start. I succeeded. I owe you." Harold accepted the payment, then immediately gave it to another young farmer who needed help. That became Harold's pattern. Money that came back got recycled to new farmers needing help. Between '89 and his death in 2003, Harold helped 72 young farmers total, gave away over $6 million in tractors, land rent assistance, and direct financial help. He died at 81. Still lived in the same small farmhouse, still drove a rusty truck, still wore patched overalls. Estate worth $9.4 million went entirely to a foundation helping young farmers. His funeral packed the church, over 900 people. Half were farmers Harold had helped. They stood and shared stories. "Harold gave me a tractor when I was 26 and had nothing. I farm 800 acres now, have 3 employees. My kids will farm this land, all because Harold believed in me. Harold taught me that wealth isn't about looking rich. It's about doing good. I farm 400 acres debt-free because of his help. I've helped 3 other young farmers get started, passing forward what Harold started." The eulogy was given by Michael Torres, now 44, and farming 1,200 acres. "Harold Jensen changed my life, changed 72 lives directly, changed thousands indirectly through the farmers we've helped. He looked poor but was rich, lived simple but gave lavishly, never sought recognition but earned eternal respect. That's success. That's a life well lived. The lesson spread beyond Iowa. Harold's story became a parable. The rich man who looked poor, the generous millionaire in overalls, the farmer who bought 32 tractors cash and gave them away. Schools taught it, churches preached it, business classes studied it. The core lesson: never judge by appearance. The poorest-looking person might be richest. The richest person might look poorest. Wealth isn't about display, it's about substance. Harold Jensen proved it. Shut up everyone who thought he didn't have a penny. shocked them with 3.3 million in cash, then taught them that real wealth is giving, not keeping. They thought he was broke. He was worth 11 million. They laughed at his truck. He laughed all the way to the bank, then gave it away. They judged his appearance. He judged their character. And in the end, Harold Jensen, the farmer they thought didn't have a penny, left a legacy worth more than money. He left 72 farming families, hundreds of jobs, thousands of acres producing food, millions in economic impact, and one simple lesson: never judge a farmer by his overalls. The patches might hide millions. The rust might hide riches. The quiet man might change the world. Harold Jensen did, shut everyone up, changed everything, proved that appearing poor while being rich is smarter than appearing rich while being poor. That's the story. That's the lesson. That's what happened when assumptions met reality at a farm auction in November '89. The farmer they thought didn't have a penny paid for 30 tractors in cash and shut everyone up. Then gave them all away and taught everyone what wealth really means. Harold's journey from nothing to 11 million. Understanding how Harold Jensen built $11 million farming 320 acres requires examining his entire 45-year journey. 1944. Harold returned from Korea at 22, had $400 in military pay savings, no land, no equipment, no prospects, worked as hired hand for farmer named Albert Peterson, made $120 monthly, saved 80, lived in Albert's bunkhouse, ate simple meals, needed nothing. After 2 years, Harold had saved nearly $2,000, told Albert he wanted to farm himself. Albert responded by giving Harold a 1948 Farmall H tractor. "You'll need equipment to start. This tractor's yours. Pay me when you can." Harold cried. Nobody had ever given him anything. That tractor was worth $1,200. Albert gave it freely. Harold never forgot that generosity. It shaped his entire philosophy of wealth. Using the Farmall, Harold rented 80 acres, paid cash rent, $8 per acre annually, farmed it himself, made enough to live and save a little, repeated for 5 years. In '51, small farm came up for sale, 160 acres. Owner retiring, asking $32,000. Harold had saved $8,400, not enough for down payment. He went to Albert. "I want to buy that farm, only have $8,400. Banks won't loan to me with no collateral." Albert thought, "I'll loan you the down payment, $8,000. You pay me back whenever you can." Harold borrowed $8,000 from Albert, combined with his $8,400, had down payment. Bank financed the rest, $24,000 at 6% over 20 years. Monthly payment, $173, crushing for a young farmer. Harold worked brutally hard, farmed his 160, worked winters at the meatpacking plant, lived on $60 monthly. Everything else went to the land payment and savings. By 1959, Harold had paid off the farm. 8 years. Age 37, he owned 160 acres, free and clear. With no land payment, Harold's financial situation transformed. Farming income, $12,000 annually. Living expenses, $720. Savings, $11,280 per year. Harold bought another 160 acres in '62, paid cash, $28,000, had saved it over 3 years, now owned 320. Farmed it all himself with minimal hired help. Gross income by 65, $18,000 annually. Net after expenses, $10,000. Living costs still under $1,000 yearly. Savings, $9,000 annually. But Harold didn't just save cash. He invested. Started in '66 with municipal bonds. $5,000 invested, returned 4.5% tax-free, added to it annually. By '75, Harold's bond portfolio, $120,000, plus land worth $240,000. Total net worth, $360,000. The '75 to '85 period was crucial. Farming income exploded during this decade. Harold grossed 40 to 60,000 annually, netted 25 to 35,000, lived on 1,200 yearly. Savings, 24 to 34,000 per year. His investments compounded, bonds plus dividend stocks. By 85, investment portfolio, 640,000. Land value at peak, 960,000. Total net worth, 1.6 million. Then the 83 to 85 crisis hit. Harold watched neighbors lose everything. But Harold had zero debt. Crisis didn't hurt him. Actually helped. He bought foreclosed land cheap. Added 160 acres in 84 for 96,000 cash. Sold it in 88 for 192,000. Profit, 96,000. Did similar transactions 3 more times. Made over 300,000 buying low during crisis and selling at recovery. By November 89, Harold's financial position. Land, 320 acres worth 1.2 million. Investment portfolio, 8.4 million. Cash, 1.6 million. Total, 11.2 million built over 45 years, on 320 acres, living on under 1,200 annually. That's how Harold had 11 million when he walked into the auction. That's how the farmer everyone thought was broke could pay 3.3 million cash for 30 tractors. The recipients. 3 stories of the 32 farmers who received tractors. 3 stories stand out. Recipient 1. Michael Torres, age 24. Michael was working 3 jobs in 89, construction during day, gas station evenings, farm work weekends, trying to save for equipment while farming 80 rented acres with borrowed machinery. Michael had saved 18,000 over 5 years, enough for down payment on used tractor, but not enough to actually buy anything useful. Banks wouldn't loan to someone with no collateral. When Harold gave Michael the 1985 8060 worth 140,000, Michael's life changed instantly. With that tractor, Michael could farm efficiently, quit 2 jobs, focused on farming, made enough the first year to rent another 160 acres. By 94, Michael farmed 400 acres. By 99, 800. By 2009, 1,200. Michael paid Harold back 140,000. Took 8 years of payments, but he did it. Harold tried to refuse. Michael insisted. "You changed my life, I owe you." Harold accepted, but immediately gave it to another young farmer. Michael is now 59, still farming, worth 3.2 million. Has helped 6 young farmers get started, giving away tractors and land rent assistance. I'm doing what Harold did because Harold showed me that's what wealthy people do. They help. Recipient 2. Jennifer Walsh, age 28. Jennifer was one of 3 women among the 32 recipients. Female farmers were rare in 89. Banks discriminated, wouldn't loan to women farmers. Jennifer had farmed with her father until he died in 87. She wanted to continue, but had no equipment. Father's equipment sold at a state auction to pay debts. Jennifer worked as ag teacher, farmed 80 acres on side with rented equipment, saving for tractor. Had 12,000 saved, needed at least 40,000 for anything useful. Harold gave her a 1982 40/40 worth 84,000. Jennifer cried, hugged Harold. "You're the first person who believed I could farm." With that tractor, Jennifer expanded, farmed 240 by 92, added 120 more by 96. By 2000, farmed 480 acres successfully. Jennifer became advocate for women in farming, spoke at conferences, mentored other women farmers, always credited Harold. Harold didn't see gender. He saw a farmer who needed help. That's rare, that's special. Jennifer never paid Harold back monetarily. Instead, she helped 11 other women farmers get started. Equipment loans, land rental assistance, mentoring. I'm paying Harold back by multiplying his impact. 11 farmers helped is worth more than 84,000 cash. Harold agreed. When Jennifer told him what she was doing, he said, "That's exactly right. Money comes back. Impact multiplies. You're doing it right. Jennifer is now 63, still farming, worth 1.8 million. Her legacy includes 17 women farmers she's helped, many now helping others. Recipient 3. David Kim, age 19. David was youngest recipient. 19 years old, son of Korean immigrant farmers. Parents didn't own land, rented 200 acres, struggled financially. David wanted to farm, but parents had no equipment to give him, couldn't afford to buy. David was taking classes at community college while working at feed mill. Harold gave David a 1979 40/40 worth $72,000. David's parents cried. They'd never seen that kind of generosity. David farmed with that tractor for 12 years, maintained it perfectly, saved aggressively like Harold taught him. By 2001, David had saved enough to buy 160 acres, paid cash, $84,000. David was 31. By 2010, David owned 400 acres. By 2020, 640, all paid for, no debt. David is now 54, worth 4.6 million, farms 640 acres. His son farms with him, planning to take over eventually. David paid Harold back $50,000 before Harold died. Partial payment. Harold accepted it, but gave it immediately to another farmer. David has since helped 9 Asian American farmers get started. He understands discrimination they face, helps them navigate it. Harold looked past my age and race, just saw potential. I do the same for others. That's his legacy. These 3 stories multiplied across all 32 recipients. Most succeeded, most helped others. Harold's 3.3 million created ripple effect, worth tens of millions in economic impact, and hundreds of lives changed. The community's transformation. Before Harold's gift, people in Black Hawk County judged by appearance. Wealth meant new trucks, new equipment, big houses. After Harold's revelation, people questioned assumptions. Maybe that farmer in old overalls is wealthy. Maybe that rusty truck belongs to a millionaire. The shift was measurable. Banks started taking seriously loan applications from farmers who looked poor but had solid financials. Dealers stopped dismissing farmers based on appearance. One dealer said in '92, "Harold Jensen taught us a lesson we needed. We were judging farmers by their trucks instead of their balance sheets. We've changed that. Last year, we sold equipment to 12 farmers who looked broke but paid cash. All reminded us of Harold." The cultural impact spread. Churches preached about Harold's generosity. Schools taught his story in economics classes. Parents told children, be like Harold Jensen. Live below your means. Help others. By 2000, Black Hawk County had lowest farm debt-to-asset ratio in Iowa. Farmers there were more conservative financially, more likely to pay cash, more likely to help each other. All because Harold Jensen showed them a different way, a way that looked poor but built wealth, a way that accumulated millions then gave them away, a way that cared more about impact than appearance. The final years, Harold farmed until 99, age 77, still drove the same truck, still wore the same overalls, still lived in the same house. He sold his 320 acres in '99 for $840,000 to a young farmer, gave the buyer favorable terms. The sale was Harold's final gift, selling below market to someone who'd care for the land. Harold moved to a small apartment in town, lived on Social Security and investment income, spent almost nothing, gave away almost everything. Between '99 and his death in 2003, Harold gave away another 2.8 million, all to young farmers, all to people needing help. When he died, estate was worth 9.4 million. Every penny went to the Harold Jensen Young Farmer Foundation. The foundation continues his work. Has helped over 200 farmers since 2003. Total impact. Harold personally helped 72 farmers. His foundation helped 200 more. Together, 272 farming families exist because of Harold Jensen. Those farmers collectively farm over 80,000 acres, employ over 400 people, generate over 200 million in annual economic activity. All started with one man who looked poor, was rich, and understood that wealth is for giving, not keeping. The lesson endures. 20 years after Harold's death, his story still teaches. Business schools use it, churches reference it, farming conferences feature it. The core lesson remains powerful. Appearance deceives. The richest people often look poorest. The wisest people often seem simplest. The most generous often live most frugally. Harold Jensen embodied this. Looked like he didn't have a penny, had 11 million, looked like he needed help, helped 72 others, looked simple, was wisest man in the county. On Harold's gravestone inscription reads, Harold Jensen, 1922-2003, farmer, giver, the richest poor man in Iowa. That inscription tells it all. Rich but looked poor. Gave while others kept. Succeeded while appearing to struggle. They thought he didn't have a penny. He paid for 30 tractors in cash. Shut everyone up. Then gave them all away. Then gave away millions more. Then left legacy worth billions in impact. That's Harold Jensen. That's the story. That's what happens when someone lives for others instead of appearances. The farmer they thought was broke was richest. The man they pitied was most generous. The person they underestimated changed hundreds of lives. Never judge a farmer by his overalls. The patches might hide millions. The rust might hide generosity. The quiet man might be the wisest person you'll ever meet. Harold proved it. Shut everyone up, taught everyone, changed everything. That's farming wisdom. That's life wisdom. That's the legacy of the man who paid for 30 tractors in cash when everyone thought he didn't have a penny. Be like Harold. Live simple, save aggressively, give generously, impact eternally. That's success, real success, the kind that matters forever.